Promises made, promises kept. President Trump fulfilling his campaign promise of extreme vetting. New rules issued by the State Department now require foreigners applying for visas to provide 5 years of all social media accounts, handles, email addresses, and phone numbers. The state proposal implements part of the president's extreme vetting executive order signed back in March, which is still tied up in the court system. President Trump's promises of tougher vetting resulting in refugee admissions plummeting. According to the State Department data, the U.S. accepting just over 2,000 refugees in March, the lowest monthly total since 2013. 3,300 refugees admitted in April, the second lowest total since 2013. Joining me now to discuss the law and order president and much more, Michelle Malkin. She is the host of Michelle Malkin Investigates on CRTV.com. Michelle, great to have you with us. Let's start with those refugees.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Let's start with those numbers. I mean, this is a decidedly new world that President Trump has brought to us in the way of a diminished flow of refugees, vetting beginning to take on the issue of backgrounds and going far beyond whatever the State Department had done before, or for that matter, the United Nations.
Yeah, I hope it's a trend that continues. And these low figures, actually, at some point, we hope, would stay at zero. I would have preferred a complete moratorium, zero level. And if you look at over a period of 10 years, as Refugee Resettlement Watch and Ann Corcoran have pointed out, we're still at a dangerously high trend.
Right.
And Donald Trump will still come in slightly below average when you look at 10 years. But this is such a promising development, Lou. It is a huge sea change from the open and unfettered floodgates that we had under Obama, and that, of course, we would have had if Hillary Clinton was in office. And every day there's more reaffirmation, especially when you look at Europe. Not only the refugee resettlement racket from the welfare and education and healthcare spending level, but of course national security. You have so many of these, what I call refugee jihadis, who are exploiting the refugee program to infiltrate all of these European countries and endanger people from the inside, exploiting the generosity of these welfare states in Europe.
It's truly a refugee complex that has been built up here. Of nonprofits, NGOs who are paid government monies, principally from the United States, certainly, but they have grown up here, not only in the welfare sector, but in education, particularly higher education, colleges, universities, getting involved. Then the nonprofits who are actually paid per refugee. So we've created an incentivized system to bring in unvetted refugees from all around the world. That's part of why President Obama's administration was doing that, feeding the machine that had been built by the left.
Yes, that's right. And then, of course, with an eye towards solidifying what they had hoped would be a permanent ruling majority. I mean, they saw these people as their future Democrat voters. And of course, it's very important to note that the distribution of these refugees across the country was occurring, no, not in Washington, D.C., not in Nancy Pelosi's district, but of course, across the heartland in places like Minnesota and Idaho and many small towns in New England, which have borne the brunt of all of those social costs to their education systems, to their health care systems. And you even have some Democratic mayors who had their eyes opened, who were complaining under the Obama administration and telling the State Department, stop, it's enough.
Michelle, let's very quickly turn to the Senate, where the health care legislation now has landed. Some senators saying they want to begin brand new legislation, as Fred Barnes here earlier pointed out. That's what senators do, the rude and snotty son of a guns. The House is never, up to their standards. But it looks to me like the prospects are about as bright as we could have possibly imagined for President Trump's legislation to be moving through the House and ultimately to be passed by the Senate and be put on his desk for his signature. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to try to be as sanguine as possible, Lou, but it's hard to do when you have these Beltway barnacles who have been encrusted on the USS government vehicle for so long, and they are going to want to tear it up and start over again. And that's, of course, keeping in mind that I'm unhappy with as far as this the House package went. I think it should have been far more radical. They should have delivered the promise that they had made to the American people to fully repeal it. But that's politics. I mean, that's how the sausage is made. And I think it behooves people who were most affected by the death spiral, by the rising costs and premiums and deductibles, people like me who are in the individual market. Under Obamacare, I saw 3 of my own individual plans canceled, less choice, longer waiting lines, and, you know, more of a bureaucratic headache. People really need to understand that we have to get back to as much of a free market system in healthcare, because that's where the superiority and excellence in our healthcare system comes from.
And competition in that kind of marketplace,
Absolutely.
of course, is what will lead to lower premiums, an important aspect of everything that we're talking about in terms of healthcare policy.